It's supposed to be the only other way. Okay, I think I think we can start talking.
Oh yeah.
I think we're good.
Well, what has been? Because I've been following, like as you've been talking about it on Twitter, at least I've been trying to follow your process, like post Adamsville, trying to like come up with an idea, thinking about like what you want to do and who you want to who you want to print it, and should you like, do you come up with the publisher first and then you come up with the idea, or vice versa? I remember seeing a bit of that, like
well, I mean, I don't know who's going to print it yet, so I don't really get much of a say in that end of it.
Yeah.
So it's really more about just trying to create an idea that I think a publisher would even care about.
Yeah.
And then putting it out there and just seeing what happens. I mean, so I sent it to publishers. I started sending it to printers yesterday, and I sent it to 5 agents, and 2 of them I've already returned responses with passing on it. One of them, he was just saying that he's not currently looking for new clients, which happens. Sure. And then the other one, she just said it wasn't what she was looking for, and that's fine too. I'd rather hear back from her promptly than be waiting for weeks.
Oh, that's a good sign. So, yeah, they actually went through it.
Yeah. And so right now the plan is to send it to around 15 or so agents, and if everybody passes on it, I have the email addresses for all the editors at all the major houses if I wanted to send it to them.
Nice.
I just don't want to go that route because that's technically not the proper etiquette. They would want you to they want you to go through an agent typically. I mean, like they'll look at it because they understand that a lot of times comic book artists don't have agents and that sort of thing, and the comic book industry is just sort of different. Yeah. But I would much rather have an agent who has my back, who's helping me put it together as well as possible, all that sort of stuff, and then we go to the publishers then. But
it also kind of gives you cred, the fact that like they're keeping it professional, what you're submitting, but also it demonstrates,
makes you look more professional.
Yeah.
They kind of view the agents as being sort of the gateway. Like if you made it through an agent, you must be okay. You must at least be decent.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how they look at it. And so, we'll see what happens. I've got a couple of agents I've been talking to for a long time that were interested in Adamsville at one point, or wanted to see what I did after Adamsville, and I'm waiting to see if they're interested in this. They didn't like the haunted house idea that I was working on.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was one of the reasons I decided to postpone that book, is it wasn't getting any interest from the people that I was hoping would show some interest, and the project was so big and going to be so laborious, it didn't make sense to me to keep working on it unless I was going to commit to finishing it, and I just wasn't in a spot where I felt like committing to that. I don't know. It's after 7 years of working on Adamsville, I was ready for something a little smaller. And so this new idea is definitely that. It's a more simple project overall.
Would you say it's like a 1 volume type deal? Or? Yeah.
And a haunted house was too. It's just it was going to be maybe about 100 pages longer, which basically translates to around 6 months to a year of more work.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it would make more sense to try something that, if it didn't get a publisher, I would still finish it, but it wouldn't, consume my life for years and years. It would, maybe take me a year to finish, and I try another idea, and we just keep going.
Yeah.
Plus, your new idea that you're working on now also feels a little more intimate in scale than the haunted house book, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like the other one you were looking at doing would have been much more involved to draw.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it definitely had some stuff that was. You mean like intimate in the story, or?
Well, just like a small group of characters in in one location for
Yeah,
the most
yeah.
part.
Hmm. Like I kind of view this one as like me going off and making an indie movie. Is like the way I kind of think about it. It's like it's a smaller budget. I'm keeping it in more muted colors. It's it's a shorter movie, all that sort of stuff. If we're using that sort of terminology.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's sort of how I wanted to kind of go make it an indie film for all intents and purposes. Sort of the way I was approaching it.
Well, I love the poster kind of teaser thing you put out. Looks fantastic. Yeah. So this is more intimate. I mean, this is a lower compared to Adamsville. Would you say it's smaller scale? I mean, it is in terms of like how long it takes to tell the story, but it seems like kids, neighborhood, spooky happenings.
Yeah, it's definitely a more intimate story.
Okay.
It's really it's actually a very personal story. The basic premise of the story is this group of kids get trapped at they're having a sleepover together, and they begin to suspect that their friend's new housekeeper might not be human. is the log line for it.
As we all have.
Yes. Yeah. And the premise of this really came out of when I was a younger kid. My parents worked at my mom. I grew up in a single family home. And my mom had to work late nights, and we had a housekeeper that watched my sister and I. And like we really loved her; she was awesome. But then she suddenly passed away, and when she did, obviously it really affected us because we loved her; she was great.
Yeah.
But then the new person who came in was kind of like the opposite of everything she was. She was, not particularly caring or kind. She would look for opportunities to take advantage of us. And not that she was cruel. She just, when you're a kid, it's just sort of jarring.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out how I put a group of kids in a situation where they get trapped inside a house with somebody. And that's sort of what was the launching pad, is like take that basic experience of a kid who loses the housekeeper or someone he cares about, and then the new one comes in, but she's actually a monster. And so the kids are all having a sleepover, and kind of chaos ensues when they discover what she is.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it goes over the course of one night, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, neat.
And so it was kind of, I really love small scale horror stuff. So like I loved A Quiet Place. It's big, like it's small, but it feels big. It's very intimate. It's about just that family, like Signs, full of signs. Those sort of things that really focus in on a very small group of people that you like, not people that are jerks. And I love this idea of just a group of young kids who are just dealing with something crazy. So that's sort of how the premise of it came around.
I would think it'd be particularly hard to make sure you're hitting all the beats that you want to hit in over a single night. I would find that really challenging.
I mean, like just the story beats?
Yeah, like progressing through the entire story and making sure. I mean, you got to use like every hour of that day, and make sure you like every step you're taking through that story. I'd be tempted to just say, okay, you know what? I kind of want to change the scenery. They're going to be at a supermarket now, or like I need a week to go by so that this can develop. So that's a particular challenge, I would think.
I haven't found it to be, but it's I kind of give myself a little bit of an out in that there are like kind of some flashback scenes that'll occur, kind of developing the housekeeper who's passed away, her character a little bit. So when the story, often when the story's sort of changing mood or changing moods or focus, I'll switch to that in the writing phase.
Yeah, that's good.
But no, it's really more about like just sort of the emotional beats of the story. So like in this particular story, the emotional beats are boy loses this person he cares about, the housekeeper, the inciting incident, he meets the new one, begins to suspect that she's a monster,
Mm-hmm.
convinces his friends to go and try to prove that she is. So that's the break in Act 2, is this kind of investigative, is she or isn't she type thing.
Yeah.
And then the midpoint becomes when they confirm whether she is or she isn't. And then, your break in Act 3 will be something terrible happening, and I won't spoil all that stuff. But
sure.
But it's it's those plot turns that are hard. But I am having a little bit of a hard time completely landing on the theme, and I don't know that I'll figure that all out until I've written a full draft of the book and kind of gone back. And, I have a theme that I'm working with now, but I'm not completely convinced it's the perfect one for it. But so I may end up doing some more extensive rewriting to the beginning to accommodate for that later, as I figure it out.
I mean, that's a whole other challenge too. I guess you got to be confident. I mean, you know how you write, but just making sure you feel good about the amounts of content you've already laid down and sent out, and you know that the rest of the puzzle pieces will find their way into the structure as you go along.
Right.
That's tricky.
Well, I was listening to. Have either of you listened to Graphic Novel TK, that podcast?
No.
So Gina Gagliano, who is now the head of publishing for Random House Comics.
Yeah.
Who used to be over at First Second.
Mm-hmm.
It's her and a comic book artist. And basically the whole point of the podcast is the publishing end of graphic novels. So they interview agents, publishers, submissions, editors, all that sort of thing. It's a really helpful podcast. I highly recommend listening to it.
What was that called again? I'm going to sub right now.
Yep, Graphic Novel TK.
Okay. Fantastic.
I haven't
she's
listened
a really
to
cool
all
girl.
of
I
them.
remember for years tuning in and hearing her insights on first second stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't. She hosts it on this one. But yeah, now she's the head of publishing for an imprint.
Wow.
So, or the creative director, or whatever the specific title would be now. But recently, Random House expanded to include their own version of Scholastic's graphics type thing. Mm-hmm. So they have that so far. But she was. They were asking her about this idea of would you rather see a finished graphic novel or would you rather help shape it? And she was really of the mind of especially because of the artwork end of a graphic novel, I would rather come in early than late.
Yeah.
And so, you sort of just have to look at it and go have I put together a convincing pitch, knowing that it's probably going to get a lot of editorial feedback and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I guess it's better that you don't have all the puzzle pieces in yet, I guess, because you're looking for a an advice partner, I guess, through the process.
Yeah. And with graphic novels, I think it doesn't hurt because of the artwork does create a unique challenge for them from a do we approve this pitch type thing.
Yeah.
She was saying, it's really difficult if I see a pitch that I like, but I'm man, I only like it to the midpoint, and then I really wish you would change everything else, and you've drawn a 300-page book, and now you've got to be willing to redraw all this stuff, so...
Yeah.
And she's and if I loved it, I still would ask them whether they would be willing to redraw it, but it's an unnecessary hassle, so...
Yeah. And how likely would someone say yes to that as opposed to just take it somewhere else, I guess, rightly or wrongly?
I guess that depends on the person. You know? But I kind of get in the mindset where I'm happy to bring other people in early, but what I want to do is I want to make the book whether everybody says no or not, right? So A Haunted House, I didn't have that feeling. I was if everybody passes on this, I don't know that I want to make it. Because to me, it just felt it's a big project. If I had money on the table, I'd make it. But otherwise, I'd rather move on to something that fits my life better right now. So that was why I was I just need to go ahead and make the call to to not do this, not do this right now. So, but at the end of the day, I always want to intend to finish when I start.
Yeah.
Regardless of a publisher being involved or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when do you I guess when do you know, like when do you push the button, I guess, and you start producing artwork for an idea? Or maybe you're drawing first and then you come up with the idea second. You know what I mean? Like what's your first step, I guess, in kind of exploring a new approach, like what you're going to do for the next couple of years?
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, I don't know, man. Like that's the most difficult process. Like that.
Where do you
the
get
time
your
when
ideas? Yeah.
well, more like when you're in that in between phase of like you get to choose what it is you're going to work on,
mm-hmm.
and you know that whatever you commit to is going to be a major project. To me, that's like the hardest time, because I know that whatever I decide is going to, like I said, dominate my life for the next 2-3 years or however long. And in making a decision that I'm happy with is just tough. But eventually, something just feels right. Like this idea just felt right. I was like, man, this is just, it's checking all the boxes. It's coming together very quickly. I like these characters. All the kids are based on people I actually grew up with. And, kind of the house that they live in is based on the house that I grew up in. Like, I even had my mom bring over pictures and of the old house. It felt very personal and intimate, and everything that Adamsville wasn't in, like it is. There's a lot of personal things in Adamsville, but this just felt so different in a lot of ways. And I wanted to do something different. So I was like, all right, this is kind of checking all the boxes off. But really the thing that got my mind turning in this direction on kind of tackling smaller stuff was and Johnny knows this book. It was the Nightlight book. Nightlights?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nightlights. It's a little 60-page graphic novel that came out from Lowbrow. Was it Lowbrow or Lowbrow?
Nobrow.
Nobrow.
Oh,
there
yeah.
it is.
I know Nobrow. Yeah.
It's just amazing. Like, it's so gorgeous, and it's just this little 60-page book.
Oh yeah.
And the art is fantastic, and the story kind of stays with you.
Okay.
I don't know if Johnny would have anything else to add to that, but it's just, I don't know. I read it once, and I was just like, man, I want to make something that is like this, that's small and intimate, and I can take the time to make the art beautiful. And because that's another part of it, these big graphic novel projects, there is a certain economy of using your time.
Oh yeah.
Of balancing quality versus quantity, and with a smaller project, you don't necessarily have as much of a restriction there.
Mm-hmm. I always think of smaller scale projects as the next step. I feel like no one that I know like starts storytelling. They don't enter comics thinking small, but they learn the value of that, the skill that it takes in order to economically, tell a story at that size. I feel like most people learn to appreciate that, and yeah, I can see why after 3 volumes of Adamsville, you've built the muscle that it takes, I guess, to do something on a smaller scale.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, well,
we'll see. I mean, but the funny thing was, like, I tried to strip a lot of things back with this one, meaning, like, I tried to strip back the artwork, by taking the color out of the equation. I was hoping that was going to make things simpler and less time consuming. And because I'm putting so much more effort into the drawing end of things and making sure that works really well, it's taking just as long, if not longer, than a page of Adamsville will take.
Oh, no kidding. Well, the compositions look fantastic, so I can see. I mean, you're really thinking through things, and I guess you're not thinking about putting this on Webtoons, right? So,
not now. There's sort of an option in the long run, like if the traditional publishing end doesn't work out, then I would probably reach out to them. But my main issue with Webtoons has more to do with I just don't think they're a great home for the stuff I'm making.
Okay.
Like Adamsville didn't even particularly do very well on there. It did okay. Yeah, it wasn't.
Oh, wow.
It was one of their least popular books, and I think it had I don't think it has anything to do with the quality as much as the audience of people who are there. They're the people who are really hanging out on Webtoons want high school romance, and apparently people falling in love with mermaids and stuff. That's that's their thing, and that's fine. It's just that's not what I'm making, and so they're an option, but I don't know how successful it would be on there, and whether it would even be the kind of thing they're after. So I have to see.
Were you more intentional about with Jason Brubaker, him talking about I'm designing pages with panels in them, and then I break up these pages for I kind of retrofit it into a Webtoons format after the fact. At least I think that's how he does it. Were you doing the same thing with Adamsville? Or
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because Webtoons came into the picture when I was already halfway through book 2.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I had already been building the whole book like a regular graphic novel.
Yeah.
And so I just at that point I just continued rolling with what I was doing.
Yeah, sure.
And that process of creating the pages of the book, it's just very time consuming.
Yeah. I'm putting things on Webtoons, or my indie publisher is, and we're just putting a page at a time, which is really cheap, but I think it looks all right. And we're not gonna draw in the Korean teen romance market anyway, so I don't think a lot of people are complaining.
Well, if you're putting it out there just to, make sure you're getting readers and all that stuff, or just to try to grow readers, it's not a big deal. But the way Webtoons handles their featured stuff, there's definitely we have panel requirements. You have to release so many panels every week, or a minimum of a certain number of panels every week.
That's right. You were featured. Yeah. Okay. So you're on a whole other level. That's true.
Yeah, it was a little different. And it was a lot of work, especially having a day job and a family, all that stuff. It was very difficult. But I'm glad it happened. It was a great experience. But
it must have been
long days.
All the complaints that Jason had about getting stuff together, and that was his day job. I can't imagine doing it the way you did it.
Yeah, we had to hire help.
Yeah.
I had to hire flatters, and even had to eventually hire colorists to help me, and it just took a little crew of people to finally get it done. But I learned a lot from that process too. It was it stunk to have to spend some money to do that, because it would have been nice to keep all of it. But it was also nice to give other people an opportunity to get some professional work in, and it's weird. It's sometimes I forget. I'm I want to be a published author. I was talking to Stephen McCraney earlier, and I was talking about how nervous I am about this process of pitching again, because I've never had anybody say yes. But I'm well, I did though. My last project, they did say yes, and I got paid, and I got paid a decent wage to make my books.
Yeah. You talking oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't feel that way, because the book isn't in Barnes and Noble or something, but
Yeah.
But it still was a legitimate publisher who published my books, paid me a good rate to make it, and is a publishing credit. It's just I guess it's a non-traditional type of thing, so it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. I think most, probably every comics maker we'll ever meet is probably romancing on some level.
Right.
That idea of you walk into some office and they say, "I'll buy that," and they just kind of take it off your hands and put it in every bookstore in America.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and with just the work that I create, which is more youth-oriented, like I said, I think finding a publishing house that's what they're interested in doing would just have benefited everything. Would be a huge benefit.
Yeah.
And Webtoons has made some changes to their contract too, which I'm not a huge fan of with regards to printing material. I won't dive too much into them, but they just added some restrictions that weren't there when they started, and I'm not a big fan of that, of what they've done. At least for my work personally. Everybody else I know is fine. It's just for what I'm aiming to do, it wasn't something I was a big fan of.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, so I remembered a question. This is my number one question I wanted to ask you about. Given the audience that you've been going after with your work, and you've kind of built that audience locally and across the state and beyond. And I don't know a lot of people. I don't know anyone who's done that, but I haven't even heard of a lot of people who've done that besides like Kazu and others.
Yep.
And I guess with you going to a this more kind of mainstream publisher route, are you going to be taking the same approach once the book is out, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm afforded that opportunity.
Yeah.
But I mean, literally, what I did was I realized that my market was not on the internet.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I looked at the people who I saw was being successful in that sort of space, and I looked at what were they doing. And the two most successful people I know in the children's publishing industry, in the comics end, excuse me, is Kazu and Reina.
Yeah.
And what they do is they go to schools.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, okay, well, if that's working for them, it probably worked for me. And I knew some teachers, and I kind of just put the word out there, said, hey, I'd like to come do some visits. Let me know if you'd like to have me, kind of thing. And I just did a couple, and then those went really well. And then word of mouth started spreading, and then it kind of built up now to where I, visit a good handful, maybe 10 schools or so. Generally from January to May, I'll visit maybe 10 schools over that period of time. That might be a higher number, but it's somewhere between 5 and 10, depends. Right now I have a visit in like 2 weeks, and then I've got another visit in May. I think I have 3 or 4 lined up between now and like the end of February.
And how far is your range, I guess, for those sort of things?
Like how far will I travel?
Yeah.
Well, I recently put a thing on my my website that kind of outlines all my pricing. So if it's cool. Local, I'll go local. But if you're gonna have me travel, I have a day fee plus you have to pay for my expenses to travel. So
yeah.
But really, excuse me. Really, what works better for people who want me to travel? I might have to get some water here in a second. This is why I didn't want to do that panel on Saturday, Johnny. Really, what works better for places outside of Jacksonville is the Skype visit stuff.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that really opens it up. So you do so. What's the ratio, would you say, of Skype visits versus in person?
In person is definitely way more popular.
Yeah, that
but
makes
I have
sense.
I have a couple of Skype visits coming up. Yeah, the Skype visits I mean, that's something I'm trying to expand into because it's so much easier for me. I can just do it from my house, like, and I work from home the majority of the week. So it's basically, set up a part of my day, go do a Skype visit real quick, take an hour to do it, go right back to work. I just took my lunch hour doing a Skype visit,
Yeah, just making money on your lunch break. It's great.
Right. But it hasn't really expanded too much. I don't really know how to help get it to expand. I need to look into it some because I think it could be doing a lot more than I am doing with it.
Yeah, it seems like on some very high upper level, the momentum just kind of feeds itself, I guess. But,
yep. It's definitely happened with the local visits. Like, there's an awareness of who I am and wanting me to show up. But
that's cool.
But even locally, I think I've sort of started to saturate the market with Adamsville. Like, they've already kind of all seen me. They've done that book. So I'm sort of expecting it to die down until a new book comes out, and then I'll email my teachers again, and I'll come back out and see all of them.
Yeah, sure.
It's even been a little slower right now than what I generally expect, or what I'm used to. But I kind of expect that.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, it's neat because I feel like for a decent number of years, comics artists, publicly at least, would how do I say it? They wouldn't divulge the fact that they had a day job. It was like an unspoken agreement that you wouldn't be. There isn't a benefit to that, and that it was just a temporary thing that you were doing until you could be a real comics artist, and it was your day job. And then it slowly, I think, I don't know what it was, but I feel like it's kind of leaked out that there's benefits to that. And you're one of the people I think of when I think of artists.
That's good.
Like, really just going out there and speaking to the benefits of it. And now it's at the point I hear people talking about their day job as a comics artist and wishing they had something else that was their day job so that they could work on this, at a pace that they were more comfortable with, or they weren't as pressured to immediately make money from it, from page one, or so yeah. I'm glad you're out there doing what you're doing, and at the quality.
I'm glad it's helped you.
So.
Well, thanks, man. And I'm glad it's helped you because I mean, it bred a lot of discontentment in my heart for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And where I was just resentful that I didn't have the job that I wanted.
Yeah.
And feeling like I was. Yeah, I mean, but then honestly, like I got to know a lot of people in the industry, and like all my favorite artists are on. Almost all of them are a friend of mine on some level. I talk to Kazu kind of regularly. A lot of the artists that I look to have become friends, present company included. So but I got to see how a lot of those artists were genuinely struggling financially.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a lot of them did.
Yeah.
And even if they were immensely successful, they were struggling. And I was just like, I'm like, well, why are we all out here killing ourselves for an industry that obviously doesn't exist to support us yet?
Yeah.
And I realized that I could produce comics at the same speed as professionals were. I mean, if I put a book out in 2 years, that's professional speed.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And I mean, it's a long day for sure, but I also go to bed at night and I know where my paycheck's coming from. And I mean, obviously, I wish comics were paying me more, but they're paying me okay. I mean, it's right now. There's not money coming in because Webtoons is done and Adamsville's over, and I'm in that in between phase. But could you imagine if that was your day job and you were in that in between phase and
just living off savings or something, and if you had savings.
So I got to take a year off and kind of discover myself again, and feel no financial pressure otherwise.
It's fantastic.
And I don't know how much have you heard me talk about it from the perspective of Paul the apostle
No, and
and the idea.
I'd very much like to hear that take.
Okay. I was actually chatting with some other friends about this. We were talking about the idea of like art is your calling, right?
Uh-huh.
And like I don't feel like when I'm not doing my dream job, or I'm not living my dream, and something I've really kind of allowed myself to examine is this idea of a calling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of us, when we think of our calling, we think of it as an occupation, and I would propose that is wrong.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're going there. This is going to be great.
So I would propose that a calling has more to do with your actions and like the direction of your life and the things that you do than whether or not you're making a living from it. And so
yeah, it's not occupational. Yeah.
Right. It can be, and God bless you if it is. Like I'm not saying it can't be, but like if you feel like God has put you on this planet to make comics for a living, well, you better be about making comics. Like whether it's your job or not.
Yeah.
Like God didn't say like, hey, I put you on this earth to tell stories. Also, you don't do it until it's your job. Like he's like, no, tell stories, and obviously and ultimately the Bible really only talks about one calling, and that's to preach the gospel.
Yes.
So everything else is just everything else is more you're intuiting your passions as if they God has somehow spoken them into an entitlement factor in your life or something. Like and so I definitely believe he builds us with passions, and we should be about pursuing them and building on them in a way that honors him.
Oh yeah.
But there's an Americanized version of calling and a sense of fulfillment that gets tied into the Bible. The Bible just doesn't teach. So I look at someone like I look at Paul. Mm-hmm. Paul was a tent maker, but was that his calling? His calling was to preach the gospel.
Yeah.
But he still had a job. He provided for himself, and then he preached the gospel when he was done with his job. And I'm like, well, if that's not too good for Paul, why is it too good for me?
Amen.
So if I feel like I have to have a job that provides for my wife and my kids and makes my wife not wonder where our next paycheck is coming from, okay, cool. But I also feel like I'm put on this earth to tell stories, so I'm going to tell stories, whether it's my job or not. And so looking at it from that perspective has been so helpful to me because I'm not, I don't know, it's brought a lot of contentment. And it doesn't mean that I'm not hopeful that maybe one day what I would like to be my full-time occupation is my full-time occupation. But I certainly don't feel like like God has dealt me a bad hand, or I'm somehow failing in his best for my life because it's not my day job.
Yeah.
I would feel that way if I didn't make books. Like if I never made Adamsville and I wasn't making something else, and I was just playing video games and I was mad because I didn't get to make comics for them, then I would be wasting my life.
Yeah.
But I don't feel that way as it stands.
Oh man, very well said. That's fantastic. I'm gonna clip that out. That's gonna be my alarm every morning.
Well, and do you know who Will Terrell is?
No.
He's another comic book artist, and he watched me go through a lot of this sort of stuff, and he really encouraged me. He's like, man, I think you have a perspective on this that a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression because they don't think about it appropriately. So I try to put it out there every opportunity I get.
Yeah.
I want people to make art because that's what they think they're supposed to do. And I don't want them to feel like their life is a failure because they don't do it for a living or something.
Mm-hmm. I remember my sophomore year in college, I had a fine arts instructor that told me that she figured out in college that she wanted to be a fine art. Maybe this is something that fine artists figure out earlier than comic artists, but that she wanted to do art and not have it, not be stressed out about whether or not it was paying her bills. So she decided, because of that, she decided to be a teacher. while she was still an undergrad, and I was like, I don't understand that motivation at all. Like, she's not doing the real deal. Like,
right. Yeah.
Like, so you decided before you even tried to cop out. That's basically, which was, thankfully I was disabused of that. But it took a good number of years, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think a part of it might be the romanticized starving artist aspect that bleeds over into our field, maybe, where we think the struggle's worth it, and it's part of the value of doing it right and doing it well is having a particularly hard life for your craft, maybe. But
yeah, there is certainly like this idea of like, oh, like people will talk in glowing terms about like how hard they worked last night, how little sleep they got.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're killing yourself. No, get some sleep.
Yeah.
Like, I went through a period in Adamsville too where I don't think for maybe 3 or 4 months I slept for more than 5 hours a night. and I legitimately was having dizzy spells. I would just be walking around and I would get so disoriented, and I was trying to figure out, like, I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, something's wrong. And it comes to find out I was just extremely exhausted, you know,
just like chronically.
Yeah. And I just had to go sleep. I had to take a break and go sleep. And all those things went away when the book was done. I was able to have normal resting hours for a while.
Miraculous.
And honestly, like, my vow when I finished Adamsville was like, I never want to get to that again. And if that means it's not my full-time job, or it means it takes me longer to finish a book, and I guess it means it takes me longer to finish a book, but I'm not going to kill myself for this. Like, it doesn't pay enough to justify killing yourself for it. And two, it's just, I don't know, I want some sleep. I want order in my life. I want to enjoy my friends. I want to see people.
You don't want to die early.
Yeah. So, there's an over glamorization of us kind of killing ourselves for it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a professor in college. He told me, because I got married a month after I graduated from college, and he told me I was killing my art career by getting married. And he was like,
too happy, I guess.
No, because I wouldn't be able to, like, you know, move to California to pursue art jobs and you know, stuff like that. And I was just like, but I'd rather be married than have an art career.
You're a human being first. And, oh my gosh.
And and he's probably right to some degree. Like,
that's the unfortunate thing. Yeah.
But I also think being married kind of whipped me into shape. Like, I couldn't goof off anymore. And like, I've been watching those Jason Brubaker videos where he's showing like all the stuff he did as a kid. And I was like, I am a lazy person.
Yeah, he's really opening up the vault.
So much time.
Yeah,
he is. Goodness. I just watch it and I think to myself, like, I just didn't work hard enough. That's why I didn't get the opportunities I wanted. And like, he was cranking out submission packages for publishers every 2 weeks. I was doing like one a year. Like, no wonder
his, like,
so
high school Spider-Man stuff, I was like drooling over that.
Yeah, he's so good.
I'm not even into superhero stuff, and I was like, oh man, wish I could draw. He's like
so
that.
Good.
Yeah,
he's such and honestly, he's one of my favorite people in comics. Like, I'm so glad he's become a friend, like, not just a guy I talk to, because
I'm sure
we started talking to each other because of the Webtoons thing. I was emailing him and saying, like, hey, I got this offer too, and we just sort of started talking about it because of that. And then eventually we just got into talking to each other with some regularity. And he's just one of the most positive, nicest people in comics. Really good guy.
That brings me to this is the one other thing I told myself I would bring up with you is personality traits, like different personalities in comics and how that plays into marketing. I've always been so thankful. Jason's really got me. I'm sure a lot of people have the same story, but Jason's got me through a lot of my, I guess, like comics pursuit over the past few years, just by being so public about his process,
right?
Even while being what seems to me like a pretty introverted type dude who gets kind of stressed out and doesn't really like the idea of putting himself out, and being that available to people as much as a lot of other comic artists seem to like, and but he's doing it all the same, and it's been really interesting to see him kind of figure out what works, I guess. And so I give to his Patreon, and I asked, one of the things he does is he'll let you like call him, you know, in a group chat like once a month, and I asked him like, so you hang out with Doug TenNapel, and your personalities couldn't be more different. And Doug's always, he gives everyone he meets advice, but he's giving you advice on how to market, and it just makes me wonder, because the sort of things that Jason talks about that sounds like sensible marketing, Doug doesn't do, and the things that Doug does and that he thinks is a good idea, Jason doesn't do. And yet both seem to work for them, and I was thinking maybe it has more to do with personality, you know, because like Jason will say like, this sort of thing, I don't really think it's working, but it's really just not working because he doesn't like doing it, you know what I mean? Whereas like Doug, he'll spend like 3 hours every day ranting on Twitter, which is something I think Jason would rather die than do that. But it works for Doug, you know? So I'm wondering, like, where do you see yourself, like, when you think about who you are as a person and how you relate to media and getting yourself out there, like, what feels comfortable for you versus what doesn't? Like, what's been your experience since starting this whole thing about how to approach, like, raising awareness in a way that works for you? I guess you've already kind of gone into it a bit with going to schools. Apparently, you know, you clearly like that, but
honestly, I think this is an area where I could use a lot of work. I don't have a particularly big social media following, and I don't think my art not being successful on social media has much to do with my audience.
Clearly,
because I think what I mean by that is, like, there are plenty of children's illustrators that are very popular on stuff like Instagram and Twitter, so you're making children's illustrations. So I don't think it has to do with my art, meaning I do think it has to do with the quality of my art. I think I need to get better. I don't think one of my major focuses from last year and this year until the end of time right now is become a better artist. I think I'm okay. I don't think I'm great. I want my art to be undeniably good, and I think guys like Doug and Jason are undeniably good.
Can I throw you something? I think you're
sure.
I think of you as in, okay, this is just me. I think of you as kind of like a Kazu 2.0.
Okay.
Whereas, like, Kazu's like way above all of us in terms, and this is the impression I get just from how he talks about himself. He's a businessman and marketer, as much as he is an artist, and I think he enjoys that as much as he does enjoy telling his own stories, which is kind of a unique trait. But I think he has a passion for that. That's meant that he can be at the very top in terms of getting books into kids' hands. But I don't think his art is above yours. I don't think he would say that his art is above yours. You know what I mean? So I don't even know.
Well, he was a huge. He was and is a huge influence on me.
Well, sure, yeah.
And so much so that, like, Scholastic, one of the things they brought up when they passed on Adamsville was it looked too much like Kazu.
Well,
and to this day, I still have people who think Adamsville is drawn by Kazu.
Yeah. I don't know. I think if yours is like a richer, like he has a very kind of fast, like it's great stuff, obviously, but he's got a goal in mind to get to the last page, and he's figured out how to do that very well. And I feel like yours is, I don't know. I'm just dunking on Kazu, I guess. But
no. But I also think I think kind of being that closely related to another artist that's so well known is also problematic.
Yeah.
Like I had another well known artist do a portfolio review for me at a SCBWI event, and he knew that I was close to Kazu, and I won't mention his name. He's a very well known illustrator, but he knows Kazu. And we were talking about him and some of the stuff he said, and he's like, honestly though, man, he's like, Kazu is Kazu, and if you're not better than Kazu, you're not going to get work. Like, in other words, like you're just another. Like, why would they go to you if they could just go to him? You know.
Yeah.
And so part of my focus has been like, well, what is my voice? Like, what makes my art unique to me? And one of the things I'm really happy with so far in the Sleepover pitch is I feel like I finally found my style, like something that looks like mine. It doesn't look like other people's stuff.
Definitely.
And I'm excited to sort of keep pushing that and see where I can take it. But my focus is just get better. And I think if I do get better, a lot of those social media things will grow. I really want to focus on becoming bigger on there, but I'm more akin to Jason, I think, than I would be Doug. At one point, I was a bit more Doug. Like, I liked getting into political debates and arguing with people. And then eventually, I just got sick and tired of wasting my time arguing with people who had no intention to change their minds.
Yeah.
And me neither. Like, although I'm pretty willing to concede a point when I'm wrong, but I've been around plenty of people who don't.
Yeah.
And I just kind of got over it. And also, I would never want someone to be. I've thought about this a lot, and it's that I don't want somebody to be upset with me because of my political views, or because of the only thing I would want somebody to be mad at me about would be that I'm a Christian, and not because I was a jerk about it, but because they just don't like Jesus, and so
because you can't apologize for that.
Like I can't apologize for what the Bible says, you know. Like you see these artists who kind of get caught in these gotchas with like, you know, are you okay with homosexuality? And they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe. And it's like, my answer would be, the Bible says it's wrong. I didn't say it. It doesn't mean I hate somebody who is, or that I want ill for them, or that I want society to shun them or treat them as less than, but I'm not going to protect the Bible from them. Like, it's what the Bible says. Like, your issues with the Bible, not with me. You know. And I have to wrestle with what it says as much as you have to wrestle with what it says. And if you just don't care, then okay, fine. We'll see how that pans out in the end. But I think about that stuff a lot. Like, you know, how do we engage these issues? And I think where I get frustrated with some people when they engage them is I feel like they're defending their point of view rather than defending the Bible, and also or not even defending the Bible, just letting it speak for itself. Like, so why are you defending it? It's what it says, you know. I don't know if that answer makes sense, but but in general, I just want to let the Bible. If someone wants to get mad at me, be mad at me because I'm a Christian, not because I'm a Republican or libertarian, or, you know, I believe in whatever, you know. And so I approach social media now. It's more just a place that I post stuff online, but I'm going more towards Jason's route, which is I kind of just want to put work out into the world. But Jason has like, the thing I've been thinking about doing is more YouTube content and stuff, but I also have so little time to devote to this. I'd rather just be making pages, and so. You know, it's kind of I don't know. It's hard. I just want to make books. That's the problem.
Well, you could always, just live stream your process. I don't know how appealing that seems to you, but
I don't mind doing it. It's more that, and I've been wondering how I could do it. And most of the time, I draw now like at 6 in the morning till 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live stream that early because it's going to basically. Siri just went off for some reason.
Oh yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah, it was turned on. I would be worried I'd wake up the house basically if I was talking and interacting. But I suppose I could always like live stream and then I could create videos of those live stream, like the way Jason does it, where he just kind of fields questions and.
Yeah, and the audio doesn't necessarily match up with the visual, but he's just kind of spliced them together. Yeah. Right.
That might be a route that I go.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm thinking about. And I've also come to where I really like being in private when I create things. Like that's why I'm not sharing much of the Sleepover online. I don't talk about it much online. I like creating in privacy, and so I might get more that way. Like if all the publishers pass on this book and it's in my hands, I'll get a lot more gabby about stuff and a lot more sharing. And because at that point, all it's going to do is benefit me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It seems like, I think I'm getting to the point, because, okay, so I have a day job, and I can put on headphones all day at my day job, and so I listen to whoever happens to be streaming a lot of times, and oftentimes lately that's been Doug, and I think I've come to the conclusion that I rarely agree with Doug, but I
have to.
Yeah, but I think he's figured something out. At least if I'm the, how do I say this? It's not what he's saying; it's what he's doing that's working really well. I think, at least with me, it's and I think he said this a few times. Like just he's not necessarily trying to impress people with the particular page. Like he's trying to draw great pages for his book, but more than anything, he's just trying to demonstrate publicly that he's producing. And he's found like that's the way he's going to be doing that, I guess, so that people regularly have reminders like I exist and I'm doing things, and you can kind of scrub through this video if you want to see a particular page. I want to, you don't even have to listen to it. You can just say, oh look, he did a page, and there it is, And I've been thinking more about that, like maybe maybe live streams don't even have to have an audio component. You could just put on ambient, royalty-free music, and then you can just kind of work with the mic off, and maybe that could be a waste of time, but or it could be like just kind of publicly keeping your process out there, keeping it transparent, and I don't know, but that's what I've been thinking about, because a lot of times I kind of work at weird hours too, and I can't wake up the missus and that sort of thing.
Well, I think with Doug too, he what I appreciate about Doug is I think Doug likes you. If you disagree with him, he wants you to disagree with him and not change your opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's valuable. That's a good point.
Unless there's a good reason to. But what I think he doesn't like is inauthenticity. And so, like, if you're pandering, if you're, changing your opinions because it seems popular in the moment, I think he doesn't respect that, And I think that's just the way he is. He's just like, this is who I am. Deal with it, And if you can deal with him, he'll deal with you, and everybody's fine. And I think that's sort of the appeal of his streams and his page, is that he's just authentic. He's being himself. And
he's selling himself. He's selling that authenticity of just it's okay for me to make mistakes. It's okay for me to say one thing one day and another the next if I thought about it some like yeah. It's immensely. I find that incredibly appealing, honestly.
Yeah. And I think it's why people gravitate towards it, because it's just, you're getting him the way he is, and he's not going to filter it. Now, he would probably admit there's times he probably should filter it, but in general, I've found him to be a very just accommodating, kind person. Even when he disagrees with you, he's going to be nice. A nice guy.
Yeah, and I guess that's a line we all got to walk with our public presence, I guess. Mm-hmm. Even introverted Jason Brubaker is, I think I don't know, I was joking around, like, I feel like maybe it's the beard, but he's getting more bold, I guess, with putting opinions out there, and I guess if there's anything to learn that I can learn from Doug, not having the personality that he has, it's that authenticity of I guess your audience can smell someone who's put too many layers up between you and them to just try to keep themselves squeaky clean because they're worried about like one person unsubscribing, I guess. And Jason's great because he only talks about things that he feels are particularly important, and he keeps it to comics, or comics adjacent content. But if he has an opinion, he's putting it out there more, and I'm getting really impressed and kind of inspired about the way he's handling that. So even he's getting more, I guess, transparent, like maybe the sort of conversations he'd had with you in person, like he's having on his videos now.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I'm so torn on it because on one hand, like I appreciate that what they're saying is it's this authenticity and all that stuff. But I'm also like, I don't want the headache of it. Like, it's not that not that I'm afraid to speak my opinion. It's like, why do I think anyone cares? Like,
Yeah, like fishing for controversy is like a whole nother thing.
And that sort of feels like what it's doing is it's like I'm contributing to the internet in all the ways that I think are negative, which is I put my opinion out there. It's probably a divisive opinion, and people are going to, if I'm discussing something that's a controversial opinion anyway. Mm-hmm. But and is that how I want to build my audience? Whereas there's like Will Terrell, who I was speaking about earlier. Yeah, he put himself out there, and he's just positive and like trying to encourage people to pursue things, and I think it's just being transparent in the areas you want to be transparent in, and helpful in the ways you want to be helpful in. Like, I think Doug likes engaging political conversations. Yeah. So he does. And I think Jason doesn't want to be political, but he's still finding other ways to be more authentic, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's never political, but it's authentic. Yeah, it's still relevant to issues like Patreon issues, or feeling like he can be himself and have opinions. Kind of free speech issues. Like that's pretty valuable, and I guess it's kind of timeless too.
And it should be things that most of us should be able to rally around. Now, I mean, depending on where you land on the issues, like some of the Patreon stuff, like if you think Patreon should put down these people that they see as being fearmongers or whatever, then you're going to disagree with Jason. But I think Jason would be like, okay, well, then we just disagree. Like, I wouldn't want them removing you, and I disagree with you,
And because he's putting these he's making these pre-recorded, edited videos, like he can say it exactly the way he needs to and qualify it and contextualize, where he can say like, I wouldn't we're gonna have disagreements, but that doesn't mean I don't think you have a right to have a comic or have a Patreon account. Like, so he can build like a, if he's jazzed up where he wants to have like to make a statement about something. He can build his entire argument at his own pace, which probably works really well for him. And then someone like Doug can just kind of have an 8-hour live stream and just kind of rattle off stuff as it comes to him, and that works for him. But yeah, but they're both being authentic at the pace and in the format, I guess, that works for them. Yeah.
But I mean, I wish I knew how to grow my internet audience. I feel like I should be a lot further along with as much stuff as I've done as far as my follower count. I mean, I'm only barely over 1,000 on Twitter, and I'm only like 600 on Instagram. Not even at 600 yet. I'm close.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well,
but
I don't know if anyone's following anyone anymore. Like, do people? I feel like it dropped. Like, maybe it's just me. I have 600 followers. I'm pretty sure on Twitter. I'm pretty sure 500 are dead accounts. And
probably.
You know, like, I don't think I've grown at all. And yeah, I haven't been able to figure that one out. My issue is like I have maybe need to rein it in, and I have a lot of stuff that I'm interested in, and I like you know, like everyone, I like to think that I'm a very interesting person. So why not just put it all out there together?
We're all just getting our
10
minutes or 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, and most people aren't going to find most of what I'm interested in interesting. So maybe I need to just have it be an art only. You know, just have my social media accounts be art only, and that kind of focuses the stream, sort of narrows it. I
don't know. It's I don't know what the answer is, but I also know other people can grow it to really crazy numbers.
Yeah. We could just argue about politics all day too. That might help. But...
Yeah. You want to drive yourself a little bit insane.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish I knew, but like again, I also look at like my friend Steven. I don't know. Do you know Stephen McCraney at all? Like, you follow his work and know who he is?
Yeah. Followed him for a while. Yep.
But,
cool guy.
But Steven to me is kind of like what I think I care more about, which is to say, like, he doesn't hang out on social media. He's kind of that real, like, deep work stuff. Like, he doesn't know what's happening. He's barely ever on it. But he's constantly successful at his comics. Yeah. They grow. He gets an audience. He's just focusing on getting work done, you know?
Yeah.
And working on doing good work. And when he pops in, he uses social media as a way to promote something if he's got something to promote, but then he's kind of off of it. Like we were talking earlier about a Kirkus review that he got for his book. And he was just like, yeah, I haven't read it. I heard it's not very good. And he just avoids it. He just, I don't know. I really want to be more like Steven. Like, I just want to focus on making good stuff. And maybe that's partly where I'm at, where I just want to make good books. I want my books to be strong. I want to visit kids. I want to grow an audience that way. I'm not very interested in growing a vapid audience of internet followers. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe I might have gotten you talking for 30 minutes on something that's ultimately kind of a distraction more than anything.
I do think it is to a large degree. But I acknowledge it can be useful. But then I look at stuff like when Jake Parker did his Kickstarter for Skyheart.
Yeah.
I think he had at one point something like 90,000 Instagram followers. And on his Twitter, like all those things combined, I think it was something like either a couple 100,000 total followers or something like that. And he said only like 1% of them showed up.
Wow.
And like 1% of them showed up to back his Kickstarter.
Oh man.
And so you just sort of start to wonder, like, how much is this worth it? And then my friend, another friend of mine, tried to launch a Kickstarter, and he has like 60,000 Instagram followers, and he couldn't even raise like $12,000 to print his book with 60,000 Kickstarter followers.
That's incredible.
And so I think I kind of look at it and I'm like, it feels like it only exists to make you feel like you're bigger and better and awesomer.
Yeah.
But does it actually translate to money and like paying work? Like I'm sure it does translate to some paying work, but does it help book sales? Does it? I think if you're making good stuff, people are going to find you. You know, I don't know. It's not a wasteful 30-minute conversation. I just don't have great answers because I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to think like, what do I'm evaluating whether I think it's worth the time and energy because I'm not sure it is. To worry about it growing it particularly as much as I think what I do think is worth it is having finished products, putting books out into the world, making sure they're quality when they come out, promoting them, getting in front of, like for me that means getting in front of kids. Like while everyone else is out there trying to get Twitter followers, I'm like, I'm gonna go visit some kids and sell 100 books. So
yeah, that's a good point. That is social. That's your social media in a way,
right? And that doesn't work for everybody, but
yeah,
I've become comfortable with that working for me, for sure.
Ah, that's a great point. We're all trying to figure it out, and just like social media is built to do, we tend to focus on it maybe more than we should, and like you said, if quality work, ultimately kind of speaks for itself. And if we have a calling on some level to make good work that's speaking to kids, then social media isn't going to help us speak to kids better, and it's not going to make or the quality of our work better. So maybe it's maybe it has a place, but it's more limited than at least that I'm giving it credit for.
Like I think I'm more interested in getting readers than I am followers, and so like I don't. It feels like a lot of the Instagram stuff. Like really, what you're doing is just like this incestuous group of people who are just all clapping each other on the back. It's not even necessarily like the lay person. It's just other artists following each other and praising one another.
Yeah, and kind of hoping you'll follow them back, and
yeah, and it's like we're all just exchanging money between each other when there's like this whole ocean of people that we should be engaging and trying to sell our books to.
Yeah,
and like that's our audience, and I don't want like my friends to feel pressure to buy my stuff. I want total strangers buying my stuff, and I don't want them to be artists. I want them to be kids. I want them to be parents. I want them to be an adult who's just looking for a good read. Like that's what interests me.
Yeah,
is gaining that, and maybe that's why I don't grow so much in the artist community because I'm just not interested in the artist community. Like I'm interested in having friends that are artists. I'm interested in putting my art out there, but I'm certainly not looking for them to praise me to the point that they grow my followers to some gigantic number. I say that, but I also I want to be acknowledged as good at what I do. So who knows what I'm saying anymore.
Yeah, well, yeah. Are Reina and Kazu like how much? I mean, people know them.
Yeah,
but maybe fellow artists aren't throwing their names around a ton, but readers are. So
yeah, I mean,
that's
you look
thing.
at Reina. Reina, I think they put her numbers out. She's sold like 2 million copies of Smile. Is she selling those 2 million copies to all of us artists? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And if you go to her Instagram page, she's not like crazy high on her followers. Like if she posts a page and only a couple 300-400 likes, but she's interested in her readers.
Yeah.
Like that's what she's interested in.
Yeah, she's changing lives with those readers.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's not to say and she shows up to a convention, she gets a gigantic line because of readers,
Yeah.
And I think that's just what I'm interested in. And if I just want more readers, if they want to be followers on Instagram and social media, that's awesome too. But I'm more interested in putting books out so that I can get readers to read my books than putting out pinups so that I get more followers because other artists think I'm great. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to be great at my art because it helps bring more readers in the door, not for any other reason than that, really.
Yeah.
Man,
I'm slowly
I don't know if I
deleting my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan art collection.
Don't do that. That's quality stuff.
Instagram. No. Yeah.
Oh, that's the quality.
That's these are great points. This is really good stuff. Yeah.
But I certainly don't disparage people on it. I don't know. I feel somewhat like I need to hedge it because, I mean, obviously I can't help but look at some of my friends who have like just crazy numbers of followers, and like I think it's awesome, and I certainly wouldn't shun it. I think it's awesome, and if you got it, more power to you. I'm just questioning the validity of it and whether it's actually furthering what it is you're trying to do. I think for a lot of artists who are trying to get freelance work, a gigantic audience probably is really beneficial.
I was just about to say that, yeah. Yeah, if you're looking for commissions and that sort of thing, that's what I hear more of. Yeah.
Or an art director to find you, or whatever the case might be. But if you're trying to sell books, that doesn't necessarily translate a one-to-one thing,
Yeah. The point of purchase, I think, is too far removed from
like a lot of those people probably will support you, but you need a lot more people than that to support you if you're hoping to really see it turn into something. At least that's what I think. That's my observation of it anyway.
It makes a lot of sense, and I think we're all trying to figure out what we thought the comics putting things in people's hands, like what that kind of looked like with the convention scene until recently, or I guess that was it. That was like the number one thing that everyone thought you had to do. And with that drying up, I feel like people are trying to figure out, kind of scrambling, and they're finding different things that fit for different personality types that actually do seem to work. But
I would also contend that, like, I think it's because we're convinced, like, well, I want to get my books out there, so I need to go to a comic convention. No, you need to go to a book fest. You need to go to schools. You need to go, like, you're content with playing in a pond of like this small group of people who read comics, and you're not focusing on the fact that like there's an ocean of other people who would just read your books if they were aware of them. And that's like I feel like I do much better at a reading festival, like a book festival or a school event compared to a comic convention by like leaps and bounds. Because a comic convention is a fairly small group of people. It's also a group of people that seem very interested in just like catering to their fandom rather than trying new things.
Yes,
and
for sure.
And readers in general are more open to trying new things. And so if you can, get into that different group of people, they're like, yeah, I want to try a new book. I bet my kids would love this. And, rather than, hey, do you sell Spider-Man prints?
Yeah, they're open to new genres, things like that. Yeah.
So my hypothesis has been stop caring about comics people and start caring about readers in general. And that's sort of what's led me to actually sell a lot of books, is because I focus on general readers and less on comics people. Comics people are great. I'm one of them, but it's a small group of people compared to the rest of everybody else.
Yeah. And you're marketing to your low-key competition too. Man, sage advice. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll let you go at this point. Clearly, we could talk for more, but yeah.
I'm a talker. I'm sorry.
No. Oh, jeez. I'm just glad we could have a chat. This has been really cool. I figured another Floridian, I should probably reach out and get to know.
Yeah. I've chatted on Twitter enough times. It's about time we chatted this way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to definitely dive into preterism. I'm super fascinated by the topic, and more and more convinced of it as a biblical position. On the finality of everything is where I'm not quite sure where I can go with them on the full preterist people.
that's kind of tough.
But it also creates some very hard interpretational challenges because you have to account for a gap in time that Scripture doesn't necessarily seem to indicate. So it's, I don't know, it's tough.
Yeah, and the instinct, I think, is to feel a little insecure for a little bit when you walk into preterism for the first time, and you start thinking maybe some of those ultimate things should have happened by now. if a lot of these things have already happened.
Yeah.
You know, and you start feeling a little shaky, and then I think it at least for me it strengthens my convictions with the Scripture, because it says, you know, like, these things were going to happen, and here they happened. And especially with the 70 AD stuff, like it's just like a gap. It's just so funny, like Jewish history, like the destruction of the Second Temple is like, you know, a fixture in the Jewish mind.
Yep.
And yet, like, as much as the First Temple, I'm sure. And then for Christians, I think the average evangelical doesn't even have a firm idea that it ever got destroyed or when. It's just kind of like, it was there in Jesus' time, it's not there now, maybe we should build it again. Like, what happened to it? You know?
And I think they miss a lot of, like, I was recently rereading through Luke. And gosh, we're going to get started on this. And, but yeah, it's just like, once you start looking at that whole period of the Jewish-Roman War, and some of the things Christ said about judgment coming on Israel, like
on this generation.
Yeah, like it was. I mean, it's hard to, and I'm with you. Like, that's the thing I was trying to tell people, was like, honestly, if it happened, it encourages me so much, because that means it's true. Like, it's true. Period. Like, we can't look at the Book of Revelation and say, is it going to happen? We can say it happened.
Yeah.
Like, and he wrote it before it happened, and it's one of these things where, like, we live. It's a uniquely interesting thing, because we have enough historical data from that period to, like, verify some of these things.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the prophecy in the Old Testament was prehistory in a lot of ways. Like, there wasn't good records. There wasn't a strong backbone of society necessary. So we can't, like, they still even can't prove, like, David had a real kingdom. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, but we can prove the temple was destroyed in AD 70 as a part of this war, and we can
like stone by stone. Yeah.
Right, and then we can look at Revelation and get some idea that John wrote it before those events occurred, and if that's what he was talking about, it's true, you know, and then that makes the rest of the Bible true by proxy, and you know, so I'm the same way. Like, I look at it and just encourages me rather than discourages me.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the futurist perspective is, like, really discouraging.
Yeah. Like, we have all this to look for, like, all these horrible. Well, I guess that's where the rapture comes in, because then you get a get out of tribulation free card, I guess. But
the rapture is a fantasy.
Yeah.
Whether I'm a futurist or not, I still think the rapture is a fantasy.
Oh, like, it's 19th century American invention.
It's escapist fantasy. It's not I don't think it's in the Bible. It's So it's. I wish it was. Like, don't get me wrong. I wish it was, but I don't think it is. I think the Bible says he comes a second time, and it's in judgment, and whether that's in the future or was it metaphorical or whatever, I don't know. But we'll have to dive into that in way more detail in another conversation.
I'll brush up on my Josephus, and
all right,
we'll have some good times with that.
Sounds good.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna.
Nice to chat to you.
Yeah. It's great talking to you. I'll put this thing together and get it out soon, and let you know when it's out. So.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
Cool.